Let's get started with the director of Blade Runner 2049, Denis Villeneuve. Followed by his cast, Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, Ana de Armas, Sylvia Hoeks, and the producers Andrew Kosove and Broderick Johnson. Andrew, you're sitting right next to me. Don't worry about it.
Was I supposed to stand?
Yeah. The whole time you have to stand.
Yeah. This is a standing up press panel. Welcome all of you to Berlin. It's great to have you here with us. Let's talk about the movie without talking too much about the movie. Andrew and Broderick, I would like to start with the producers. Getting this film made must have been pretty complicated and challenging. Can you tell us a little bit about how the project came to be?
You want to start, Broderick? You can go ahead.
You go ahead.
The project came to be because Cynthia Yorkin, who's our producing partner, and Bud Yorkin, Bud produced the original movie with a man named Jerry Perenchio. And as is pretty well known, as has been chronicled, the making of the original movie was a challenging experience, and there was a lot of dissension between the producers and Ridley. I think the producers thought that they were probably getting a mainstream commercial Star Wars type of movie, and Ridley made a noir, very mysterious, cutting-edge film. And so there was a lot of dissension, and after the film came out, it took several years before it was recognized as the masterpiece that it is today. And so in any event, the rights were frozen because none of these gentlemen really spoke to one another. And so eventually Bud Yorkin convinced Jerry Perenchio to sell him the rights. And then the Yorkins came to mine and Broderick's company, Alcon, and we made a deal with them and started to develop the project with Ridley. And Ridley suggested that he wanted to get together with Hampton Fancher, who had written the original, and that indeed Ridley had always wanted to continue the universe, but because of the rights situation, he wasn't able to. So, I think there's a line in the advertising where Jared Leto character says, I have the lock and he found the key. So it was kind of that situation. Ridley had the lock, and Broderick and I showed up with the key.
Good for us. Denis, now that we know about the story, how it all came about, the journalists in this room have seen parts of the movie, and they look really, really amazing. What can you share with us regarding the story?
Nothing.
Great, thank you.
And you know what? It's like as a filmmaker, as a film lover, I always deeply love the moment when the light is going down and the curtains are opening, and I'm about to see a movie. And the thing I love to know about a movie is who's the director, and that's it. And and I today there's an appetite, a hunger to know more the details, and that's why I'm grateful that the studio and the producer did their best to keep the plot as secret as possible. It's just for you. It's just to make sure that you will enjoy the ride more, because there are twists and surprises in the movie that we want to keep fresh and virgin for your eyes. That's it. So I'm sorry about that.
I think
that's the way I love it.
If Broderick and I had known that it was really the director was most important, we wouldn't have paid Ryan and Harrison so much money. You should have told us that at the beginning of the process. We thought the actors were important.
Harrison, it's really great to see you back on board. you know, after Denis told us basically nothing about the movie, what made you sign on? What convinced you?
I was convinced by the script that I read. First of all, a novella that arrived before a script, which was conceived between Hampton Fancher and Ridley for the purpose of an exercise to prepare them for the writing of the script. And I read this piece and I was very encouraged, and then a script, and I was delighted to be involved. I thought the story was extended in a way that made sense for me, for the character I played, and for the audience. I was delighted that when I read the script, I immediately imagined what's his name?
Ryan. It's Ryan.
Jeez, I thought it was Brian all this. Ryan.
Gosling.
Okay, I
It's not Brian
I'm
Rosling,
sorry.
like you keep saying.
sorry. Who knew? But I thought this is perfect. I really wanted to work with Ryan.
It just says Ryan.
Ryan. So I suggested to the producers immediately. I said this would be a great part for Ryan. And they said, "Oh, it's too late. We've already been thinking of Ryan and talking to him. Actually, even before we talked to you." And I said, "It's good to know where you stand." And I'm going to hit this guy. I'm sorry. But it was a very ambitious project. And then I was told that Ridley had decided he would not direct, he couldn't direct the film, and that sealed the deal. I know he'll take that in the best possible way. And I had admired the films of Denis very much.
Villeneuve.
Yeah. And so I was very excited about the film, and having seen the film, having made the film, I am eagerly awaiting its presentation. It is a remarkable piece of work, of which I am very proud. But I ain't going to tell you nothing.
Thank you very much. Ryan, after we found out what your real name is, do you still remember when you saw the first movie and basically what it meant to you now to be in the follow-up?
Yeah, I saw it when I was, I was 2 when it came out. And I saw it when I was about 12. And I wasn't aware of how iconic it was. But I certainly, when it was over, I realized how influential it had been on the culture that I had grown up in, but more than that, it was one of the first films I'd seen where I wasn't really sure how I was supposed to feel when it was over. It wasn't clear. It was this sort of romantic nightmare where I felt as though I had seen a possible vision of the future, and I was being asked to question what it meant to be a human being, which was a lot for a 12-year-old. And, time has proven its specialness, and it's a film that stayed with me. And when presented with the opportunity to, well, first of all, just knowing that they were making a sequel was exciting as a fan because I wanted to know what happened. And it's such a rich world that I wanted to dive back in and experience it again. And then to be asked to become a part of that and to be a part of telling that story. And to work with Harrison, and all of these talented people really was just, and again, the screenplay was, it wasn't just a sequel, it was a really a standalone piece with very, very complicated themes and characters, and just a wonderful opportunity for me.
Anna and Sylvia, could you talk about the audition process? I mean, we heard how difficult it has been to get this movie together and how great the script is. Sylvia, as far as I know, I think you tried out with a piece from Rutger Hauer, from the first one that you basically auditioned, self-taped on an iPhone and send it to them?
Well, not on an iPhone, but I remember I was working on a movie in Germany and took up all of my time. It was just me and another actor, so I only had time middle of the night, but I was so excited to do the audition that I'd been thinking about it all week and preparing, and so I finally did it in the middle of the night. I put myself in front of a door on the ground because that was where the most contacts were to put the lamps in, and it was pitch black, it was winter, and I didn't have enough light, so I put candles around, so it was me stuck in front of the camera doing the audition, and I was just fiddling around with it. I just loved the scene. It was the scene of Rutger Hauer in the original film where he asks for more life. And that was just a remarkable, beautiful scene played by Rutger Hauer in the film. And I just had a lot of respect for the film. So I was just so excited. I didn't really think about actually getting the part in the end. I was like, this will never happen. But I'll just have fun with it, right? So I sent it along, and there was positive vibes coming back from the director, and we had a working session together, and I was so nervous. I remember being in the room with this Denis Villeneuve, who I admired so much. Arrival was not out yet, but it was Prisoners, Sicario, that I was a big fan of, and I remember it was all a blur to me. It was just I loved being there. That's all I remember, and I told my agent in the car back, I'm not getting this part. I just fucked it up. Don't forget about it. And he was like, well, Sylvia, we know not to trust your instincts, just wait for it. And in the end, I got the part. And it's just been such a wonderful experience to work with these people. So, very grateful.
Thank you. Anna?
We did like 3 auditions, right, Denis? And I was... I remember it like with, I don't know, like, it was a very nice experience because at any time, I was very nervous and I was freaking out, and of course I was shaking the day I met Ryan in the last audition, but I remember it with a big smile because I felt like the whole time I wasn't being judged, or my talent or my capacity to perform was in question. It was just a matter of finding the character that he was looking for, and we talked a lot. We did a few takes. We tried things. We were about to end the session, and we talked, and we went back to it, and we taped again, and it was just it felt like really like a good process. The same way he's on set, like very collaborative, and you can say what you think and try things. It was already happening in the audition, so it was really nice. Yeah.
Denis, you're very specific about creating an environment for the actors and actresses that is real. You love sets instead of CGI more. I mean, that's what you said in an interview, and you created amazing sets for this one. Why was it so important for you? And the question to the cast, what was it like to set foot on the sets for the first time?
But the thing is that if I may just correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that one of the first questions you all asked me was, will we do this in front of green screens? and the thing is that for me, I'm someone who needs tangible objects, rooms, sets around me in order to get inspired. I like the actors to focus on their character and not at the task to imagine what is around them, but more be in contact with their interiority in order to be able to explore, to take risk, to try things. And I'm very grateful that the producers allowed us to build everything. It's a decision that right from the start, it was a wish that Roger Deakins and I had, was to construct the sets, the vehicles, and in order to have full control, and in order also to inspire us on set. I was doing this for the actors. I was doing this also for me, because as a director, I love when everything is very planned, but I love just before we push the button on the camera, when an actor has an idea, come with something that wasn't planned and brings a fresh take on the scene. And sometimes there's always a spark of genius that happened there, and that will bring fresh cinema, a real poetry in front of the camera, chaos of life. It's like that's the most exciting part for me. And as I was doing a science fiction movie, I wanted to preserve that space for the actors and for Roger Deakins and I. So it means that we built the sets. We even had the chance to build if you had an apartment with windows, we will build the street on the other side, and Roger will create light patterns that will imitate the city in the distance. It was like, honestly, when we were coming on set, you were having the experience of being in that world, and that inspired me. And I think it inspired the actors. Well, what do you think, guys? No. No.
Yeah.
We did.
No, it did inspire. It was incredibly inspiring because it was just. It felt like such a bold move for Denis to direct this film. Anyway, and then to see the level, it was such a bold choice to build the world, the level of at which he was willing to commit creatively and financially to his vision, and to grounding this and making this world his own. They were more than just sets. In some ways they were sort of monuments to his how far he was willing to go to make this real and special and great. And so I think it inspired all of us to try in our own ways to do the same.
Yeah, I feel with a futuristic film like this, if you try to get into the story and understand the world, like a lot of times when you do like a romantic comedy or an old classic, you can do a lot of research and you can watch thousands of films or documentaries that say this is the time they lived in, this is the time they grew up in, and that was what they wore and that was what they ate, and it's all very simple in a sense. And with a futuristic film like this, I think those sets were very important to us, just to understand the Blade Runner language, to understand in what world we were actually growing up in as characters, and the way Roger Deakins lit those sets, it brought them to life, and it helped me as an actor quite a bit to understand what they meant and what path they were walking.
Anna and Harrison?
About what?
The sets.
I just remember I was wet for a long time. I was under that rain for many days. But they hit it up. They hit the water, so that made me very happy.
I think for me, one of the most important things about CG and the potential we have to create in the computer is that a director, I feel more comfortable when a director has an ambition to curb his enthusiasm for what the computer can generate, because I feel often that you lose what I think of as human scale. An audience, after all, most of you are human. Some of you will write things that will make you into replicants in my mind, but that's freedom of the press. But for an audience, when it's very important for you to be able to recognize something from your own experience, your own life, even in a context of a place you've never been, a place, another world, but to keep that human scale so that you're not overcome by visual interference, and that you still are following a human story, even if there are complications to it as to what it is to be human. So I was very gratified that seemed to be the sensibility that was that inhabited Denis.
I'd like to add, from mine and Andrew's point of view also, I mean, committing to building all the sets and all the rest of it is something that we were very committed to very early on, because having worked with Denis and Roger Deakins before, there's a magic that happens with a filmmaker of Denis' talent when the actors are there and they're working together. Even on a scene with great scope and scale, there's an intimacy and an emotion that comes through when he and Roger get with the actors and they start doing what they do, and it's a wonderful thing to experience. And we knew between Prisoners, on Sunday, having seen Sicario and the tension that Denis brings to storytelling, it's a remarkable thing to watch, and we wanted to put him in the best environment that we could do, and give him the best chance to succeed, because it was such a challenge to do this and to live up to the original. So for Andrew and I, that was a commitment we made right at the beginning.
Yeah, the thing is, the best science fiction is not about the future. The best science fiction is about today. And what I think is so compelling about the world of Blade Runner that Ridley created and Denis continued is that it's a truly humanistic story. And in a lot of ways is as much a noir film as it is a science fiction movie. And so in order to create the environment where you can have the most human type of story and feel the most grounded it can possibly be, having real objects, real sets to work with is an integral part of the process. And therefore we thought, giving Denis the ability to create that environment with his very talented team was essential to the creative vision of the film.
Thank you. And now we have time for questions from our journalists. Lady over there on the right-hand side.
Hello, Franziska from Hamburg. There are two guys sitting on the panel today who should have met before in Hamburg about half a year ago. So I was wondering, Stephen, how nervous were you before Ryan actually appeared today? And Ryan Gosling, did you hear about this little event in Hamburg called Golden Camera? Were you supposed to be there? And would you sometimes like to have some replicants of you to, for example, get all the awards people would like to give to you?
Ryan, I will tell you about this amazing story later.
What is it?
Don't worry about it. I don't think it fits the press conference for this great movie. And the replicant question is something that you can probably answer better than I can.
Would I like a replicant? Would I like a replicant?
Ryan needs some help.
Yes.
A question from the gentleman on that side, please.
Hi, it's Tom Westerholt, German Public Radio. Question for Harrison Ford. You already came back for Indiana Jones, then you came back for Star Wars, now you came back for Blade Runner. Question is, was it always easy to reconnect with the characters after...
Wait a second. You got a problem with that?
We discussed this right in here. No, I don't have, of course not. But the question is, was it always easy to reconnect to the characters? And what do you like so much about comebacks?
You know, I think the question is not so much whether I will enjoy coming back to work with people that I've had good luck with, visiting characters that have been popular enough to produce several iterations of the character and the stories that he's involved in. But whether we will oblige ourselves to bring something new and fresh, albeit in old clothes, you know, and that is what I'm always hoping will be the ambition to. And in the case of this film, with the passage of 30 years, 35 years of time, how will we manage that passage of time? Will we acknowledge the difference in age? Will we deepen the audiences? Will the character be able to deepen the audience's understanding of the story? Will they miss, you know, the youthful character? And it's better than a real job.
Question from the gentleman in the first row, and then we move over here, right here.
We could hear you from there.
From RTL, question to Denis Villeneuve, sorry. I'm very interested in props and replica things, and thank you so much for putting real sets in the movie. And my question is about the blaster of Harrison Ford. Is it true that you used the Tominosuke one for this movie?
I apologize. Can you repeat, please?
The blaster from Harrison Ford, the Rick Deckard blaster. Is it true that you used the one made by Tominosuke in Japan, which is some kind of a fan-made product, but so high and detailed that this is a rumor that you use it for the movie?
Yes, the thing is that there was the real one, but also some made by this gentleman, I think, yes, that were used because they were identical. Perfect copy, perfect replica.
How amazing is it for you as a director when you're having so much love from fans that you can maybe use some props that they have made for the movie? Maybe you can confirm, Harrison, because I got also the information that the R2-D2 from The Force Awakens was also a fan-built prop because it's so detailed that they said, why should we do another one, because we can use one of the fans because it's so perfect. But the question is for...
Yes.
Question from the lady over here on the right-hand side, in the second row, right there.
Hello, my name is Frauke Guss from Radio Berlin here. Second row. I have
Hey.
to sit down because the radio is sitting here on my lap. So it's a question for Ryan and for Mr. Ford. How would you feel if all data would be gone from one day to the other? We saw that in the footage, that there was something in the past in this movie. How would you feel about that? No online things, no Facebook, nothing anymore.
I've never had any Facebook or Snapchat or any social media that I've personally engaged in. But the question is a serious question, and if I lost the pictures of my children when they were young, places I've been, people I'd known, I would feel bereft. There's much you remember and you have in your bones, but when you see a picture from your past, it's very significant.
There's a few dancing videos of me when I was a child that I wouldn't mind disappearing.
I have whole
In fact,
movies.
if anyone can help with that,
I'd
I'd
like to forget.
much appreciate that. Thank you.
Question from the gentleman right here, second row.
Hello, it's Philip Teutner. Question one more time for Mr. Ford. By all the unanswered question of the first movie, one question that movie raised in 1982 was the question of the globalized environmental problems of our ecosystem. I think this was the first movie that dealt with this topic in this way. How did you felt back then, and what did you think now about this and actuality?
The first film portrayed a planet that it predicted a future in which environmental conditions worsened. In this iteration of the story, Denis was very careful to reference. You'll notice that I don't think you will have noticed from the footage you've seen. So I will just let that thought go. But clearly the pressure of civilization, the pressure of population on the natural world creates circumstances which function to dehumanize us. We are part of nature. Nature is necessary for humanity. And whatever we do to upset the climate, to upset the natural world, the biotic community of which we're a part, it makes us. There's a phrase in the first movie that replicants are more human than human. It makes us less human than human to commit these offenses against nature. And you will observe when you see the full film that there are very imaginative extensions of the reality of the stress we've put the world under.
Two more questions. The lady over there in the second row, and then right here. Einfach laut, oder? Nee, da genau.
Greta Klassen, German Movie Magazine, Spätvorstellung. I've got two questions, one to Harrison and one to Ryan. So first, Harrison, now back in the Blade Runner world, were there some déjà vu moments on the set?
Were there some what?
Déjà vu.
Déjà vu.
It's French.
Yes, but it's not French Canadian. Eh? No, it was more après-vu than déjà vu. It was great to be back, and I didn't. It was all fresh, and it was all. I felt. You know, the original movie is in me, in my bones. And once I had decided, we had decided where I had been for the last 35 years, what I was doing, and I mostly thought about the pleasure of each day's work, you know. But it was great to revisit and working with Ridley. I made a joke about Ridley, but being able to work through the questions we had about the meaning of what we were doing, and being able to approach the film, the context again, gave me real great pleasure. Yeah.
And Ryan, how was it for you to act in a science fiction role?
What? In a science fiction role? It was great. All right.
Give us a little more.
Yeah, I've never made a science fiction film before. It was. I'm glad that I waited. This is a wonderful way to do it. Yeah, it was. I think a very unique experience in science fiction. Well, first of all, I associate science fiction with Blade Runner. I think it's the first experience with science fiction that I probably had. But also, again, speaking to the environments that Denis created, not only were the sets practical, but the props, the universe. I mean, it was a fully functioning universe, and so it was an incredible, very immersive, visceral experience for all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
This is really the last question.
Hello, my name is Vivian Albeck. I'm from German Television, Pro7, and Fantastic Movies online platform. I have a question for everybody, actually. We saw Blade Runner in 2019 in the first part. Now we are in 2049, Back to the Future again. So how you can imagine your future in 2049? I imagine that we have teleporters there, that we can teleport to different places in the world. So how is your imagination about 2049?
One thing to remember is that the timeline in our movie is a continuation of the timeline from the first movie, not the timeline we're in today. So of course we're almost in 2019, and the world of Blade Runner isn't quite the world we're in today. So I think Denis can talk about it a little bit, but we wanted to really continue within the timeline of the movie universe.
I want to say that the first good news we can take from the movie is that we are still alive in 2049. But I will say that I hope that reality will be different, because the word that is described in the movie is quite harsh, and the environment is quite severe with humans. So that's what I will say. I hope it will be more. I hope we'll have a. Is it too late for wisdom? I hope we will.
No, that's tomorrow.
No, but I hope the world will be a better place than what we described in the film.
I hope we finally work out this flying car thing. Also, I just to piggyback on what Denis is saying, it was interesting to visit the future in this way, because these characters are, although the film is a spectacle in a lot of ways, and there's so many, it's so massive conceptually. The world is so beautiful, even though it's sort of a nightmare. All of the characters, it's very much a character study, and all of these characters are very, very isolated by technology, and technology that was meant to help them and be for their convenience, but in the end has really isolated everyone from one another, and everyone is just sort of scrambling for scraps of connection and crumbs of love and affection. So I hope that we're not in that place as well. But it's interesting in a film to be able to visit that sort of worst case scenario, and maybe we can circumvent that before it happens.
The contest between self-interest, national self-interest, xenophobia, globalization, internationalism, sexism, separation of any, by any definition, I believe will become impossible. We're in this together, we're all in the same boat. Respect that we show each other, the care that we show each other, must continue to advance as well as science. We've got to. There's a move afoot to deny science. Science is a proof of the existence of God. You know, you need a little bit of both, and this kind of world makes us understand that seeing a world separated, disaggregated, makes it quite clear that we have no future unless we come together. Yeah?
Anna and Sylvia, anything that you want to add to that?
Pass. I hope we'll be human in a sense that I think virtual life is taking over. If you look at little kids, they're swiping their books or TVs, and everybody's on their phone, Instagram, Twitter. I'm on my phone all day, you know, I'm one of them. So I hope that won't take over our human experience.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Denis. Thank you, Ryan, Harrison, Anna, Broderick, and Sylvia for coming to Berlin. And thank you for the questions. All the very best. Enjoy this wonderful city. And Blade Runner 2049 will open in Germany on the 5th of October. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Now I can say?